Hi, welcome, Joe here over at Woolly Cottage. It's time for part 2 of Back to Basics video series. If you caught my live chat last Wednesday, you'd have seen me doing up some rolags. Okay, there is a reason for that, and I will show you as I'm spinning up now. So this week's episode is about getting you started spinning. So when I first started spinning, and there's quite a few of us that think that this is the best way to start up, especially if it's budget friendly, is with a drop spindle. Okay, this is my trusty old drop spindle. It cost me well under a tenner, and I bought this from World of Wool. I did add in this little groove using a Stanley knife and a little notch at the bottom of it. I decorated it myself. I just made it something of my own because that's what I do. Anyway, you get a variety of different types of drop spindles. You get the top whirl, like this one, or they can be the bottom whirl when the hook is up the top instead, or sometimes they've got a notch knocked out the top of them. Exactly the same principle. The bottom whirl historically is actually the type of whirl that would have had a long time ago, and I'm sure I've written down in my notes, so bear with me a second while I just go through my notes and I will give you a little bit of a brief history. Okay, so the practice of spinning threads has been in existence for over 10,000 years, and stones are some of the oldest tools that were thought to be used throughout history in the use of spinning thread. The theory by archaeologists is that nomadic tribes, pre-agrarian societies, would use a leader thread. So really a leader thread is when you start off with your fibre or your fleece or whatever it is that you've had, you would have a piece and you would start off just pulling at it and twisting it, and then you would create that twist in the fibre, and you would just keep drafting out until you got a full length of a piece of yarn or thread, because they may have been using grass, anything that was around in their elements, in their environment, and they would have twisted that up into that sort of thickness, and they would have tied it around what they reckon would have been some sort of stone, and they'd have picked a stone up off the floor, and that would help them create, and the weight of the pebble or the stone would help them create a whirl that would in essence bring them the weight that they needed for actually spinning with. Okay, now they reckon the whirl was the whirl for using a pebble or a stone would have been the easiest way to do it, because if they lost it they could always pick up another one, and with them being nomadic tribes they do think that they would have just cast away the stone that they were using, and when they get to the new area, location, hunting ground or whatever, they would have picked up another stone. Personally, I think they would have kept it with them, because maybe it's the weight that they really like. It's easy enough to put in a pocket or in a bag or a carrier, or something that they would use for transporting their personal items. Well, they wouldn't have had a lot of them, but they would have still had certain items that they found was quite precious, even a quartz stone or something like that they've picked up on their travels. So they would tie it around the stone, and you could use an old hagstone. I actually have quite a few hagstones. A hagstone is a stone that you find in a river or on a beach that has a hole in it that's been created through the tidal forces and other stones hitting them. They eventually end up with a hole inside it, and you could quite easily tie that through that as well, and then use your hagstone. Now they're very hard to find. Best place to go that I know of for hagstones is Hillhead Beach down in Hampshire, just between Titchfield and Fareham. It's where we used to live before we moved back up north. And I've found all my hagstones all come from Hillhead Beach down in Hampshire. So you can find them, you just got to go rooting for them, but you can actually find them in busy rivers, ones that are quite high up, or a tidal river that's connected to an estuary. If you want to go looking, it's always a bit of fun. You very rarely find one, but if you do, you never get rid of it again. There's actually a bit of a myth in history behind the old hagstones, witchcrafts and that sort of thing. So if you find one, or if you've got a hagstone lying around the house, give it a try. Just start off your own little fibre and then tie this through the hole in your stone, and you'll see exactly what it feels like to spin prehistorically. So the stone would have been rotated by spinning to put the twist in the fibres and draw out as much like using a drop spindle. This method can be found in use still today in remote areas of Asia among nomadic tribes. Although we all associate spinning thread and with yarn with a wheel, the wheel wasn't introduced into Europe until the Middle Ages. So the drop spindle was the everyday tool to use to spin threads for clothing and fabrics almost for 9,000 years before the wheel came along. A drop spindle has been in use for to create threads and yarns for ropes for ships, that the Egyptians used them for their cloth for wrapping up bundles of people, burials and tapestries. The first examples of spindles, a 8 or 12-inch straight stick, so just a standard stick, and wrap around, twisting the fibre with a notch or a split in the top to attach the drafted fibres. Now, it's very similar to looking at the Russian spindles. They're generally just quite a long, sort of nowadays modern wise, they sort of put a bit of a shape to them, but they're just essentially just a stick is what they're using. So they would put a notch or something in the top to help draft out the fibres. Exact same principle, though it doesn't sound a practical way to spin. The more thread wound around the stick, that would create more weight around the stick, which would help bring down a draw or a drop on the spindle or on the stick, on the shaft of the stick, and that would then become the weight that was accumulated, would help with the dropping and the spinning of the stick or the shaft. And with this thought was a weight was later added to the stick, or what we call the shaft, and the addition of a weight, or what we now know as a whirl, was fitted to the bottom like a disc made of wood, stone or clay, or metal like a Tibetan spindle. It's got like a little coin on the top of it. And the top whirl spindle has been existing since the 20th century BCE in Egypt. So there you go, a little bit of history just to get you going. So by using a drop spindle, you're keeping alive a very, very ancient tool and craft, okay? So what can you start off with a spindle? What can you spin? Right, practicality wise, get yourself a piece of roving top, or combed top, which is this. I've just picked up this because I've always got red stock in the cupboards. It's one fibre colour that I don't use that often, so I've always got some. So grab yourself some coloured roving, or if you've got some hand-dyed roving that's been gifted to you, or undyed roving, okay, you can use that as well. You can use once you've got a little bit better, or if you've never used a bat before, I do actually sell mini bats, little small selections, about 100 grams. There's usually 4 different colours in each, or they're in a theme, a colour theme, and you can use these as well and do the exact same preparation method, but I will leave doing the bats, and a rolag is another method as well for spinning. I love spinning rolags when I'm using my drop spindle. I find it really, really easy, and it looks, you've got the automatic prettiness coming in at you over your wrist while you're spinning at the same time. Same with the bats as well. This is a little luxury bat. This is alpaca and BFL and everything else in it. But what you want to do first is go and get yourself, you want to create a leader yarn. You don't have to use a leader yarn, but when you're first starting out, it's definitely the very easiest option to go for. So you want to cut yourself a length of manufactured yarn or some cotton, or what have you got, a thick cotton though, not a sewing cotton, and create yourself a length, and at the top you want to put a little knot in the top of it. I don't like my string sticking out too much, so I'm just going to make sure my knot goes practically to the top, and then get your spindle. Open up the loop at the top. Oh, try and get my hands around that way so you can see what I'm doing. Hold that there. I'm going to bring my other yarn through the top, and I'm going to pinch it through. Okay, there we go. So that's that on there. Now it will wobble a little bit, so what I'm going to do is do a half hinge through again, and that will make sure that that's secure and it's not going anywhere. Okay, now check to see if your whirl has a notch in it. If it doesn't have a notch in it, it's not a major factor, but it really does help, because what it does, it will hold your yarn in place and it'll stop it from moving so much when you're starting. Okay, and there's nothing worse when you're starting spinning, you're constantly having to fiddle with it because this keeps moving and you're not managing to get it done. So what I would do is go and get yourself a Stanley knife, just cut yourself a little groove down the middle of your whirl, and then just a little tiny triangular notch out of it. Okay, honestly, you will thank me for it. You can try without it, but I think you may end up finding that you might as well go and do it. And then what I'll do is I will just wrap that around twice. I just do it the once, but when you're starting, what it's doing is holding your yarn in place for you. Okay, and you'll find it really handy when you start actually spinning with the energy. So I'm going to take a section of my roving. Okay, I'm going to put that to one side. Now this spinning, you can spin straight from this and you'll end up quite thick yarn, but what I would advise is split it into a couple of little thinner sections. It just makes it more manageable for spinning with. Okay, so I'm just going to plonk them to one side. Now there's all your fibres. Now different fibres have different staple lengths. Okay, so this is a merino and you can just about make out the fibres there, and that's as a general rule, that's roughly about its full length. You get some fibres that are very short in staple length, and sometimes when you buy kits, you're not getting merino with it. Not that I'm saying that merino, I nearly killed myself with my spindle then. I'm not saying merino is the be all and end all, but for starting out, merino is a really good length of staple length of fibres for you to spin, to be able to draft your fibres and to actually get going with. If you're looking for fibres of roughly the same density but maybe a little bit cheaper, because merino is one of the sort of medium to top range fibres to buy, I would go for maybe a Blueface Leicester, which is still expensive, Rambouillet. Shetland's a good one to get started with. Corriedale's a really nice one to get started with, and Kent Romney. They're just a couple off the top of my head. Those are fibres that I learned to spin on when I first started, but pre-dyed, it's one of these ones that comes in a colour pack that I use for blending up. So anyway, drafting, what you want to do is just ever so gently just pull your fibres. Can you see them getting thinner? Okay, you can see my top through that. So there we go. If I keep pulling out, and what you're doing essentially is this is called the pre-draft. So what you're doing is you're thinning out the bulk of the fibres to make it easier to work with, and when you're spinning, the more you've drafted, the thinner your yarn will be. If you didn't bother drafting, then it'll be thicker. Doesn't really matter either way, but the drafting is an important part of the process when you're spinning. So I'll draft out this other piece here. So it doesn't matter whether you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm right-handed, so I do apologise, but whatever, if you are left-handed, just do everything that I'm doing, but in the opposite dominant hand, okay? There we go. So that has gone from that length to that length, and that's pre-drafted. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap you over so you can see the full length of what it is that I'm doing in a bit better angles. Okay, so once you've got your leader yarn on and you've drafted out your piece of roving, bring your yarn up, find your groove if you've got one, bring it round the back of your hook, twist it around, and then twist it around again, just to make sure that you've got plenty of purchase in there. And then you want to, it's called draft and ride, or park and ride, or draft and ride. Park and ride, okay? So at the park stage, you want to get your loop, okay? Now you've already drafted out your fibre. I'm just going to unplug it from between my legs. And I put it over my wrist so that the tail end doesn't get in my way, and it's away from the leader end. If it gets caught in there, it's genuinely going to fall. It's going to get trapped inside the fibres. So just pull that out a little bit and pull it through your leader yarn and hold on to it. Okay, I just need to hook this back around again. I generally do this standing up, so it's a little bit awkward for me doing it by hand. So what I'm going to do is use the inside of my thigh, okay, to help bring some energy into that spindle. Can you see that spinning? Right, so I am now spinning all that into my leader yarn, and that's called energy. It's a twist. It's twisting the yarn to create an energy. So now I'm going to just get my roving, and I'm just going to ever so gently twist it out a little bit, or draft it out just a tiny bit just to get it started, and I'm going to let go of this leader yarn, and it's going to put in energy. Now I've got lots of energy still in there, it's all twisting back on itself, okay, so I'm going to pinch and I'm going to draft out a little bit more, and I'm going to let go, and it's going up there. Now you want to make sure that you keep a hot, I've ended up with my energy all the way up top. You want to pinch and pull, pinch there, and then let go, and the energy from the spindle will go up. So what I'm going to do, I've got a really long length here and it's starting to get a little bit annoying, so I'm just going to wind that up onto, oh, wrong way, onto the shaft of my whirl, okay, and I think that's a really good length there. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to give it a little bit of a spin, I'm going to park it up on my knee, I'm going to get my roving and pinch the end that's got the energy in it, and then I'm going to draft it out, just pulling ever so gently, and I'm going to pinch this section here. That means that this bit here, see how it's all twisting back on itself, that's all the energy. Now it's going to spring up into my thread. I'm going to give it another little spin, I'm going to hold it and park it between my legs. I'm going to hold on to this here, the energy is just going up, and then I'm going to let go, and all that energy that I've just spun is now up inside that thread, okay, and then you undo it and then wind on, and there you go, your yarn is now starting to go on to the shaft of your drop spindle. So again, once you've done that, go back in to your groove behind the hook and up into itself. You can go around another time if you want to, if you feel more confident, but I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm just going to give that a little spin to create some energy. I'm going to park it in my knee, I'm going to pinch where my fingers are, and then I'm going to draft out some fibre to about there, and I'm going to let go with that, and you can see yourself that the energy's just ran up the yarn. So I'm going to give it another quick spin, and I'm going to hold it, I'm going to put it between my knees, and then I'm going to let go of it. Can you see it's all fluffy there at the moment? You can see it through my jumper, and look there, it's gone right up into the tip of my finger. Now when you're drafting out, there is this, see, it goes into a triangular point, that's your drafting triangle, okay, and that's the bit that you'll be doing next to pass more energy up through your yarn. So I'm going to give it another spin, that'll do, park it, pinch and hold and up, and you can feel it twing, and then again and up. Now I'm going to pull back the yarn on itself, and you can see that essentially it's plied, okay. I'll try and undo this now. Okay, so I'm just going to put a bit more energy into that, that'll do, and now I'm going to unwind it. I'm going to wind it onto the shaft of my spindle, and then back in my hook. I'm just going to go back into where my area is, put that over my arm. I'm still holding on to it and pinching it, but what I'm going to do now is just give it a little bit of a spin, park it in my knees, pinch the area that's got all the energy in it, because I don't want it to travel up the wool. If I travel up the wool, it'll end up twisting all this lot, and I want it to draft it first, okay. and I'm going to see if it needs, yep, it's still going to twist on its, can you see there, it'll twist back on itself. That's a really nice amount of energy. So I'm just going to give it a little bit more of a spin. That'll do. And then a pinch, pull back or draft, and then pinch. I'm going to try it again, see if there's any more energy in there. I'm going to pinch, I'm going to pull or draft, and then let that go, and you can see the energy runs up inside there again. So let quite a bit of energy in there, and if you can see, look, that's all the energy inside that piece of thread or that yarn. So I'm just going to hold that back in my place in my knee. I'm going to pinch the section that has got all the energy in, because I don't want it to travel up the wool. I'm going to draft out again, and I'm going to hold that there, and I'm going to let that yarn go up, and I'm going to do it one more time to see if there's still any more energy, and there was lots in there. And then I'm going to undo it. There we go, and that is it. It just takes practice, okay? Have faith in yourself. Have faith in yourself. It takes a little bit of practice. Now, when you're opting for a drop spindle, what weight do you want, you say? Right, this spindle that I've got is about a 45 to 50 gram spindle. I can spin thin and thick yarn on it, but generally, as a general rule, the heavier the whirl is, or the spindle is, the thicker the yarn you're going to get, okay? The thinner, the lighter the whirl is, see, it's still spinning, see, the lighter the whirl is, the thinner your yarn's going to be, okay, as an essential rule of thumb. This one, the heavier the whirl is, the more spin you get in it. It's just got more weight to it, and it's easier to get started on. I would definitely go for a mid-range heavier whirl than the lighter ones, like I showed you in my last video, where there's different types of whirls that I have, different types of spindles I have, and they're really, really lovely to have a collection of different ones depending on what you want to create. I like these ones because it's got a really long shaft on it. I can spin about 100 grams of wool on this quite easily, and it'll come all the way down to here, and I like that. It means that I can get more or less a full project on it, or I can ply up 250 gram balls of wool very happily without any problems. So you sat there, you're spinning away, you're just going through the process of spinning and drafting, and eventually you won't be feeling the need to do that park, and you draft out and then pinch and draft out and pinch and draft out and pinch. And even though there's not much energy left in that, I would give it one more little spin, and then I would undo it, because you still need some energy in the yarn for when you ply it, okay? And then round again, and I go through the same process again. There's still energy in that, so I've just spun it, and then I'm going to go on my thigh. I like using my thigh. I find it really easy, and I can get a lot more energy from doing the inside of my thigh than I can twizzling with my fingers. See, if you twizzle with your fingers, it spins, but I don't get a lot of spin out of it. I'm going to keep drafting this a second. Right, and then I'm going to wind it on again. Now, what happens if you break a piece, or if you have to replace a section of roving while you're in the middle of spinning? So if that's the case, twist that section around your hook twice, okay, and just get it in my knees. I'm going to yank this piece off and this piece. Easy as anything. If you've only got fleece to spin with, it's the exact same process. Just make sure that your fibres are lay on top of each other, and just give them a nice little draft out, and let them spin up. Let the energy traverse just ever so gently. Just give it with a bit of control in your hand, just to make sure that they are joined together. I'm going to put that over there, because if this gets caught in there, I'm going to be in an almighty mess. And there we go. That is two pieces joined back together. So I'll do that again. Just bear with me a second, and I will just stick some energy in this, and I will wind it on. There we go. So you're winding on, and you realise once, twice, you realise that you've just snapped your roving while you put something, you got distracted, you put your spindle down, one of the kids has grabbed your roving and yanked it off the piece you've got. Not a problem. So there's your piece, and I would just ever so gently just pull it and draft it out so it becomes a little bit thinner. Then get your piece that you want to add to it and draft that out with that as well. And just a bit more, I think, because it's awful thick. And then in your hands or just on the inside of your thigh, with just a little bit of patience, that's that piece connected. And then it's going up there, and you draft up a bit more, and then the energy's gone all the way up. And that's that. You can see where the new join is because it's slightly thicker than it is on the rest of the yarn there when you're making the wool. Very, very simple, and I will do it one more time, and I'll come in a little bit closer for you to see exactly what it is that I've done. So I've wound it round twice. Oh, the dog's just come in and jumped on me. Okay, so I get my top piece, I'm just going to draft that ever so slightly, and there's my bottom piece that's still attached to my spindle, and I'm going to just lay them together and just ever so gently, and I'm going to now use my fingers, might be if you want to, and then just draft out again, and all that energy goes up into that yarn. Okay, it's as simple as that. Plying. Okay, so if you bear with me a second, I shall, have I got any other spindles? I will go and have a look for a spindle, and I will quickly go over how to actually ply your yarn. Okay, so I think that's probably the most important piece before we go any further on these back to basic videos. Okay, so I've got my spindle here, and here's a singles yarn that I spun up ages ago. I use it for putting ribbon bits around and tying up labels and things like that. So this has been spun on my spinning wheel, but it's the exact same principle. Okay, so I'm just going to undo this. Now if you had taken your yarn off your spindle, I usually wrap that around my finger in the middle, and then I would wind that around my hand so I can create a center pull ball. Okay, and I would just wrap it around, and then I've got essentially two ends that I would want to connect together. How is it I ended up? There we go. So I'd end up with two ends, this end and this end, that I would then put through my leader yarn and then ply up. Plying up you want to do in the opposite direction. So generally if you're right-handed, I suppose it's not the case for everybody, but I tend to find myself when I am spinning my yarn, I'll go around twice, is it goes in a clockwise direction. I am automatically doing that. If you were using your left hand for your main hand and spinning with your right hand, you would be going in an anti-clockwise direction. Just take a mental note of that, because whichever way that you're going in when you're plying, you want to go in the opposite direction. That will help the energy relax and settle to create your ply. Same principle again. Get your leader yarn, sort it out, wrap it around your hook a couple of times if you feel confident doing that. Get your two ends, your outside end and your internal end from your center pull ball, and I usually spin in in a clockwise direction, so going from left to right. I now need to remember that I want to go in the opposite direction, and I want to go there. It's on spinning itself because of the energy that I was putting into it to start with, and it's now going in an anti-clockwise direction, so it's going from right to left, and I have to remember to spin it in that direction. And I'm just going to let the wool, see, look at that, it's starting to already spin my wool. I'm just going to do that again on a minute, a bit more, and I'm going to hold on to this, and I'm going to pinch and let that wool just go up. I need a bit more need a bit more energy in this yarn. Up, up, up. I'm just going to wind this and I'll show you again, okay? So I had so much energy in that then. But if you look now, I've got twisted yarn. And it's going in the opposite direction to which I spun it in. Even on my spinning wheel, I spin genuinely in a clockwise direction, and then I ply in an anti-clockwise direction. So that's quite happy there. I've got a lot of energy in there, so I'm just going to wrap it around twice again. There's the pitch that I've got, and I'm pinching onto this section here because all the energy, and I'm just going to give it a little bit more of a twist, and I can feel it pinching in my fingers. And that's what you'll notice as well, when there's a lot of energy in the yarn, in the twisting of it, because that's it, is pushing energy up through the fibers. You'll feel the energy pinching inside your fingers, and that's roughly about your clue. So just watch out for that. It's your clue to know that you're ready for going into the next stage, which is extending from your pinched area up to a new section. Okay, so there we go. Can you see that? And I'm going to see if I can get any more out of that. I did. And I'm just going to keep so all you have to just keep in mind is when you're plying, you want to try and remember which direction it was plying in the first place. And there we go, winding on some plied yarn. It's just about remembering, it's about technique, and it's about remembering those moments when the yarn is needing to be extended and drafting. Just take your time, use your legs, or you can use under your arm if you feel more confident doing that way, to let the energy traverse up into the yarn or the threads or the fibers, and then carry on from that way. There's not much else I can tell you about it. If you want me to, I did do a live chat, I think it was back in November. It is in my live chat sections, when one of my regular customers said to me about how she hates using a spindle, and I mentioned, I did a demo on there, so I do a bit more talking and a bit more questions about it and everything else on that chat. I will see if I can find it, and I'll put the link in if you want to go and watch that as well, to see if that helps you. So that's it for part 2 of using a drop spindle or getting you started. There's different types of fibres that you might have already been gifted that you're a bit afraid to use. So next week is a live chat, and I will be blending up a mini bat. Using my blending board again, and I'll be doing a textured mini bat next week on my blending board on my live chat next Wednesday, usually about 12:30. I'll be doing that on there, so there'll be no new videos next week, but part 3 will be the week after, and it'll be get going on a spinning wheel is where I'll be going next. And then the part 4, which will be in about 3 weeks time, will be, or no, it'll be 4 weeks time, will be drop spindling, but I'll be using Turkish spindle and helping you understand how to wind that on to get that started as well, which I think is a really good idea. And I'll be using my rolags so you can see, and I can show you how to use your rolags. You'll be the exact same method as what you'll be doing with the drop spindle, but I thought it'd be nice because there's quite a lot of people that have got Turkish spindles that we gifted them, and either A, haven't figured out how to do the little turtle yet, which, believe me, can be a little bit overcomplicated for something that's supposed to be easy to do. But I like spinning on my rolags, and I've made a load up, so I thought I'll stick some on, and I will do the Turkish spinning in that. So that'll be sometime in February, a couple of weeks away. And you'll notice that there should be, with my live chats, a running pardon me, I've had my bacon butties, a running theme. Joe, you're a nightmare. A running theme throughout my live chats that will link to each fortnight's video tutorial. Okay, so next week will be chat, and it'll be a mini textured bat, and then the following week will be will be a video of getting yourself started on your spinning wheel, and I'll be using the textured bat on there, and I have to prep that to get going and drafting out. Very similar principles as to using a roving. It's just a bigger density of fibre put together that's been blended, so all the fibres are going in the same direction, and I strip them off into sections so I can spin them, or you can spin them straight from the bat if you really wanted to. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. If you've got any suggestions or videos that you want me to do, if I'm capable of doing them, I will sort them out for you. I'm still searching for I need to find the funds to do a drop spin, to do a bottom whirl spindle, because I don't own one, so I really would like to source one that's not too expensive, and then sometime down the line I can do a demonstration on different types of spindles as I go along with these series, if that helps anybody. If anyone's got a specific type of spindle that you've got in your stash but you're not quite sure how to use it, I've definitely got one of those, and that's the bog spinner, the bog wave spinner. I'm still really unsure about how to spin that, and it's one of those ones that I know I'll be laughed at. Anyway, I will let you go. Take care of yourselves. Live chat Saturday on Instagram as usual about noon, and live chat next Wednesday on my YouTube channel. And before I go, if you use my website, there was a code that I put on there last week on my live chat. In the descriptions box, there's a discount code for anybody that buys my fibre blend sets, my little mini packs. For everything you need. So if you want to build up your stash, or if you want to blend your own bats, then I've already made sets up of those, and there's a discount code in my descriptions. Also, a new feature on my website at the moment for all my regular customers is a loyalty program. For every £1 that you spend, you get 5 points, fluff points, and for every 200 fluff points that you manage to collect from buying items on the website, you will get an email of a 15% discount code that you can use on any of the purchases on the website. Okay, so there you go. Take care of yourselves. See you through the week. If not, be good, be careful. If you can't be careful, don't get caught. Thank you for watching. Bye. Subscribe and like. Thank you.